They will do some wide shots too, but it's meant to look. I mean, look at this fine table we have.
It looks better on TV.
It's a good thing.
Do you have this kind of furniture at home, like Kramer took Merv Griffin's set home last night on Seinfeld? That's all.
I didn't see that.
He found the old set to Merv Griffin.
Good morning. Welcome to Newsmakers. For the last 2 months, we've had a steady diet of election-related segments here on Newsmakers on Sunday morning. Lord knows campaign season is my favorite time of the year, but now that the votes are counted, it's a good time to return to an examination of forces other than political that are shaping the future of the region. 14 months ago, leaders in Northern Kentucky pulled together 2 years of background work in a new vision for Northern Kentucky entitled Quest, filled with bold proposals on a host of issues from economic development to cultural development to mass transit planning. The Quest vision launched a new organization called Forward Quest. To discuss the progress in translating the vision into reality over the last year, I am joined this morning by 2 Quest participants. Michael Hammonds is the president of Forward Quest. Ted Robinson is a principal with Mayfield and Robinson Consultants and the chair of the governance committee for Forward Quest. Welcome to Newsmakers.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's interesting. My very first Newsmakers back 14 months ago was on Quest when the proposal was initially released. Mike, it's one thing to sit around and create a document with some dramatic and pretty pictures and some great big bold vision goals and say that this is where we should be heading. It's another thing to begin implementing those things. In the past year or so, what has concretely happened to, in an institutional or structural way, to begin moving this thing forward?
The most important thing is the formation of Forward Quest, a nonprofit organization that's been charged with implementing the 44 goals in the Quest vision. A board has been formed. Ted is on that board, and the board appointed me president last November.
Well, Ted, you're the head of the governance committee.
Correct.
And one of the areas that in that original statement that was probably, if didn't elicit the most interesting pictures by the graphic artists, it certainly was some of the boldest material in there in terms of finding ways to join governments together, both on the county level and on the city level. Concretely, what sort of progress has your committee been able to make in those areas of government cooperation and coordination?
Well, what we did, Dan, was to take a look at all of the initiatives that were identified for the governance area and prioritize them. A couple of those projects are there were already initiatives underway, specifically some activities dealing with tax structure and with the River City Consortium. The other 3 major topics involved creating a task force on futuristic governance, merging the 3 counties, and merging a couple of cities. Those are certainly controversial, as you say, and bold. What we concluded made the most sense was to identify with that or to execute the futuristic governance task force first. That we ought to find out what are our needs as we look out into the future, and if it comes out of that there is some sort of restructuring or realignment of political boundaries, okay, but we've thought it best not to have those as objectives for the task force, but rather to see whether they fit into the grand scheme of things, if at all, after we do our examination.
So in other words, you sort of converted a specific goal into a process to see where it might take you.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Mike, what's been the reaction of people in Northern Kentucky? I mean, maybe in this governance area specifically, but those sorts of bold proposals like uniting Covington and Newport and Bellevue and Ludlow into one sort of mega city, Have people reacted against some of these things, or what's really been the grassroots response?
Generally, the response is one of enthusiasm, because we're projecting out into the future. And people may not want to see these goals accomplished today, but I think they realize that in terms of 25 years out, we must look at some of these goals, and we must look cooperatively as 3 counties as to how we can best meet the demands of the future. So in general, I'd say that the public is very enthusiastic. Now, there's some concerns, and those concerns we're going to try to deal with, not just with the governance task force, but with the other activities that we're involved with. You know, we want this process, as you refer to, we want that to work, and that process requires that we engage the broader public in a dialogue about our future.
Now, my understanding is that there is been created, if not strictly on the governmental level, some real cooperation. South Bank Partners. Ted, could you explain what that is and what its goals are and how that relates to Forward Quest?
I'll deal with that briefly. Mike actually is closer to South Bank than I am. South Bank is really an organization that grew out of the Covington Business Council. And it embraces certain of the objectives that were set forth in the Quest report. And it really involves a great deal of collaboration among particularly 3 river cities, Bellevue, Newport, and Covington. It really is operating on a different plateau, doing things different than what we're trying to deal with in the governance task force. And I think Mike could
what are some of those things?
Their area of focus are the area right near the river. So in Covington and Newport, from the river up to Fish Street, and I think up to Route 8 in Bellevue. And they're looking at how they can enhance those areas and focusing on the cultural and the entertainment value that has already been established for those cities.
Well, one of the things, probably one of the boldest images in that Quest document was this overview image from south of Covington and Newport looking towards the river. And in the center of that is this huge tower. And since the report, then, that moved on to a proposal for what has come to be known in Newport as the Millennium Tower. Where does that project really stand?
Well, that project's gone from the mustard seed size to a project that's going to work out. It's a great idea. I think it stops to reflect on where we are heading into a millennium, and recognizing that none of us, our generation or any of that are still alive today, will ever live through a millennium again. And let's do something significant to address and applaud the efforts of so many who have come before us, and do something significant in our community in northern Kentucky that ultimately will be a tourist draw for people going up and down I-75, or just people that are looking for a tourist destination.
Now, when I covered the formal announcement of that, if I remember correctly, they were saying that for that to get finished in time for the millennium, December the 31st, 1999, that it was going to be necessary to break ground November 1. Are they on track? Have they raised the money? Is this a real project?
It is a real project, and I think that they still will be breaking ground in the very near future. I think they have a little bit of flexibility beyond that November 1 date and still meet that timeline. But they're exploring the financial parts of this, and so far everything is still a go. All their strategies appear to be doable, so they're going to continue to pursue it. I think we'll see this.
Has anybody thrown out on the table that there's a debate about when the millennium really starts, whether it's on January the 1st, 2000 or January the 1st, 2001?
Yeah, we're always going to hear
There's
that
a little
discussion.
slippage here that maybe is possible?
I think we had a little bit of that back in 1,000 years ago.
We did. We definitely did. You know, the tower is sort of a component of this, and either one of you can jump in on this one. Northern Kentucky, both Covington and Newport, but I would say particularly Newport, has been very aggressive. They land at the aquarium. They are pushing forward on the Millennium Tower. And there's a lot of talk that they're about to land the multiplex theaters and the IMAX that Cincinnati claims it needs for its riverfront. Northern Kentucky's on the move here, and is that because of Quest, or is that Quest is just a bigger framework and this would have been happening anyway, with or without Quest?
I think it all feeds on one another. I think Quest promotes some of this can-do attitude that Northern Kentucky has, and in some respects I think it's a reflection of that same kind of let's stretch ourselves and meet our full potential kind of mentality that really permeates the Northern Kentucky community right now. It's a great time.
Ted, I would just add to that, I think that the city of Newport in particular, but Covington to a large extent, and perhaps as a forerunner, they've done great things. They really have done amazing things. And I think Quest is as Mike says, kind of a reflection of the attitude that gets that done. But those people in those cities and communities, they did it themselves, and they're really to be complimented for what's occurred down there.
Absolutely.
Now, your governance committee is focused primarily on possible government cooperation, coordination in Northern Kentucky. But this whole South Bank effort and Newport's efforts really raises the point about regionalism that crosses the river as well. You know, is there a potential here for Quest to sort of fragment the region even more, or are there efforts on your governance committee's part or on Quest's part in a larger sense to reach across that river and try to find some sort of basis for cooperation?
Well, it's really happening on both levels. Certainly the governance task force that I'm chairing is dealing with the 3 counties of Northern Kentucky, and we're looking at future governance of that region. But I don't think that's inconsistent with, and I think it really complements the activities of another committee, the Metropolitan Growth Alliance, which is looking at how does our region fit into the bigger picture of the greater Cincinnati region, and how do we get cooperation across those state lines. At both levels, the challenges are immense, and so I think it makes sense to break it down into its parts and try to address the more specific or as specific issues as we can identify.
Mike, the Metropolitan Growth Alliance that Ted just mentioned, that really is a relatively new initiative. And could you tell us a little bit about what that is and who's involved in it?
Well, they convened their first meeting just a week or so ago, and it basically is a collection of the CEOs of the top, or their equivalents of the top companies in the greater Cincinnati community, somewhat like the Cincinnati Business Council, but it's broader, and it includes people from all 3 states, which is important. And I think that looking at how we as a 3-state region can address issues of a common concern is certainly a value that we have with Forward Quest. We're going to continue to look at that with our various initiatives. The Growth Alliance is going to be one of the most significant and also one of the most visible approaches to regional approach with the greater Cincinnati community, but there are many others.
And is Northern Kentucky integral to that effort? And you say it's different, it's got a different name than the CBC, the Cincinnati Business Committee. Are Northern Kentucky business leaders integral to this?
Yes, I think so. And I think Northern Kentucky is an integral part of the greater Cincinnati growth and development. You know, with the airport basically is greater Cincinnati's front door to the whole world. Boone County is one of the fastest growing areas in the greater Cincinnati area, Boone County and Warren County. So I think we're clearly part of the bigger picture, and I think we have to look at ourselves in the entire greater Cincinnati community as a one single metropolitan community, because there's so many areas of concerns that do affect us all.
Well, you know, one of those practical issues that is drawing governments together at the moment that is regional in nature, and you just mentioned the Boone County and Warren County. What we're really talking about is the 2 major growth areas in this region, the 2 booming edge cities of Mason and the area around the airport, and the possible linking of those with some sort of modern mass transit system. In your mind, and in the Quest document, one of the bold images was that monorail image that was in that document. Where does that stand, and how committed are you as Quest to a monorail on your part of that mass transit line?
Well, I'll address that. We are committed to it, to at least continuing to consider it, because the research and development of the advanced elevated rail is very promising. And if it develops as it looks as though it has the potential to, in the laboratory still, it'll be more adaptable to our terrain, it'll be faster, it'll be cheaper to operate and cheaper to build. So if, again, with that kind of promise, we feel like it ought to be kept in the mix of consideration for the transit system that this community ultimately chooses.
What do you hear governments talking about? Are they excited about the concept of monorail? Are they excited about the concept of mass transportation, whether it's light rail or monorail? Is there real energy behind this?
Well, I think there is real energy to trying to find the right answer for the long term, and it's an important development for all of the cities and the counties of northern Kentucky. So I would say they're very much behind it. The controversy that's developed around it is certainly unfortunate, but as Mike says, the case is so compelling if you look closely at it that it demands to be looked at, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have to say I spent last weekend in Washington, D.C., and being able to use the metro there is just absolutely good. Being able to get back and forth from the airport directly on the metro for $1 is just absolutely incredible and transforms your view of how the city is put together when you can just do that so easily.
And if you've ever tried to park there, then you have a special appreciation for how
at National Airport,
yes, there or downtown. I mean,
right.
You just can't.
Oh, it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. One of the things that you hinted at earlier, and I know this could get awfully complicated, but taxing policies. My understanding is that part of Forward Quest is to create a tax policy that makes northern Kentucky an attractive place to expand businesses, to settle businesses, to create new businesses. Is that what that's all about?
Well, certainly the tax policy and the administration of a tax policy is an important ingredient in how our community looks to the outside world and how we are able not only to attract people and businesses to our community, but whether they stay and whether they can prosper. So it is part of the big picture of what we have to look at within the futuristic governance arena. I referred to the tax issue earlier as one of the specific initiatives in the Quest book. There have been activities in the recent past, particularly within the Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, to try to bring some coordination, particularly within Kenton County, to the way the occupational and payroll taxes are administered. And a certain amount of progress was made within the chamber activities, and that laid the groundwork for what became a much broader acceptance of that concept through the cooperation of the mayor's task force that studied that issue. And I think now that I think all but one or two cities in Kenton County, and there are some 20 cities there in the county, are now part of that compact, if you will. So certainly those are short-term goals and short-term achievements that can be measured and can demonstrate their value. But aside from that, we will need to be looking at policy issues on a more general basis as we look at futuristic governance.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We're out of time, but this gets us back to talking about the themes that I care about: regionalism, northern Kentucky, and development. Because if we lose our eye on those, and sometimes the political process does, we've lost everything. So we'll be back in touch with you as this develops.
Great.
Good luck.
Thank you.
This generation of northern Kentucky leaders dreams of monorails and light rail in the area's future. An earlier generation of leaders dreamed of an efficient, publicly owned bus system. The Northern Kentucky Transit Authority marks its 25th anniversary today. Join me after the break for an assessment of the role of buses in the present and future of Northern Kentucky growth. Buses are mundane. They lack the sort of excitement of futuristic monorails, but in urban areas, including Northern Kentucky, buses provide the basic transportation for hundreds of thousands of riders each year who need to get to work, to school, and to see friends. And after years of attempting to prevent erosion of ridership, at 25, Tank is managing a growing customer base. To discuss the current and future plans of Tank, I am now joined by Chris Fischer, the manager of marketing for Tank. Welcome to Newsmakers, and welcome back to Channel 12. As a graduate of Channel 12, it's always good to see people doing better.
Well, thank you.
How many people ride Tank in a year right now?
In a year, we carry about 4 million passengers.
4 million.
4 million. Our heaviest ridership is obviously Monday through Friday during the week, when we carry 70% of our passengers to and from work.
Okay. And That has been growing in recent years, isn't that right?
It has. What we've seen are some of the older routes that are in the central urban areas are declining or they're flat, but many of the new routes that we're adding, especially in the southern ends of the county, are growing. 2 years ago we started an airport route that carries 14,000 people a month right now, and that's growing. We've recently added service to an industrial park in Florence, to Fidelity, which is now in Covington, and we're looking to other areas in Hebron, and all of the routes we've added, including routes to Burlington and Walton, are all doing excellent, and they're doing very well, carrying a lot of passengers.
Well, you know, as somebody who grew up in northern Kentucky, I mean, northern Kentucky, and we spent the first part of the show on this as well, is absolutely booming in the southern parts of those counties, which were practically unpopulated when I was growing up. So you've, and I think we have a map to show how you've expanded, a graphic to show how those routes really have expanded over the past few years. One of the things in all urban areas is how to get people to the jobs, and the growth is out on that perimeter. One of your biggest job generators in northern Kentucky is the airport, isn't it?
It is, and that's what we're seeing across all of the southern ends of the counties. What we did with the airport is we went to them. We went to all of the companies or agencies that work at the airport or the industrial park surrounding the airport, and we said, where do your employees live? The airport had a huge job crisis. They had about 1,200 vacancies. And the people were there, they just didn't have the transportation. So we worked with them, we found out where the people live, and then we designed routes to meet those needs. And it's been successful.
And what kind of growth have you been experiencing? What sort of percentage of growth?
I know our airport route has been about a 5% increase, and our overall ridership is misleading because, as I said earlier, the urban routes are staying flat, but the new routes we added, we're seeing a large percentage of growth on.
So what it really takes in public transportation is innovation in order to make sure you're going to where people are going, not to where they used to go.
Exactly, and that's the problem. The commuting patterns used to be everyone lived in the southern end and they commuted to downtown Cincinnati, but now that the jobs are moving to the suburbs, we're carrying people from the northern ends of the region to the southern ends of the region, as well as carrying people who live in Cincinnati and work in northern Kentucky. And now our challenge is meeting the east-west travel demands. Many people live in Campbell County but work in Boone County, and meeting that demand.
And how are you going to try to meet those demands?
We've tried some things. We have some ideas that have worked in the past, but we think we can improve on those. Cross-county service, using 275, trying smaller circulators, going back farther into the neighborhoods.
Okay. Now, one of the things that you mentioned that the flow is now to the south, but a lot of people still either start in Cincinnati and head to northern Kentucky or still have to get to Cincinnati.
Yes.
And one of the things that has changed for Tank is it traditionally went into the old Dixie Terminal, and that stopped, and you no longer have access to Dixie Terminal. And certainly I grew up going into Dixie Terminal. How has that affected your ability to serve customers in downtown Cincinnati, the fact that you don't have that terminal anymore?
It's really been a positive move for us because it puts all of our buses in the employment district, which is on Main Street. Now all of our buses go up Main Street, so many of our passengers are now closer to where they work, so they have farther to walk. Certainly the one problem that we still face is finding shelter for them in bad weather, in the rain and the snow, but as far as being closer to where they work, it's been great. And in fact, when the move first happened, we received very few complaints and a lot of commendations. People were really happy with the move. And we've opened a store up downtown as well, right in the middle of all of our stops, to enable people to buy tickets or get information.
And that store is actually in cooperation with Queen City Metro.
With Metro. We opened the store in October when we moved out of the terminal, and then in March, Metro moved in with us. Yeah. And it's a nice combination. It serves as a regional transit center. People can get information or buy passes
and
for
exactly
both.
Where is that?
It is in the Mercantile Center.
Okay. Before we run out of time, this is a big day. This is the 25th anniversary of Tank.
Yes, it is.
And this is a big week. What are some of the things that are coming up this week? We have about a minute left. Coming up this week that people could participate in.
The big event that we have is on Tuesday. We are going to have an open house from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. at our office in Fort Wright. And we're going to have tours going on, refreshments. We'll have a historical display set up that includes an old Kentucky streetcar. And we'll have giveaways all day. And for those people that work downtown, we will also have special events going on at our store called the Bus Stop. The same thing there. We'll have refreshments and giveaways.
And are there things later in the week as well?
Actually, most of our focus is going to be
Yeah,
there.
on
We are going to be announcing on Tuesday a special fair that will take place throughout the rest of the month, and some other special fun things that we're going to be doing. So
I got to say that for anybody who has not ever visited your facility and you just want to see the sort of the behind the scenes of the bus situation, but also that old streetcar, the old Kentucky car, which has been beautifully refurbished, that's a great stop. So Tuesday's a good thing to do.
it is. Thanks.
Well, thank you for being with us this morning, and good luck this week.
Thank you.
Okay. And thank you for joining us this morning. Next week, I will be joined by the representatives of a group of people committed to making sure last Tuesday's election for Cincinnati mayor and council was the last of its kind. See you next week.